All right, here we go. Hello, my name is Cody the Koala. Some of you might recognize me from my work in Kent's workshops, where I teach you how to be a really great software developer with my instructions. And I have a little announcement to make. I had a kid. Yes, this is my son. Well, he's also called Cody Jr. And yes, I'm Cody Jr. And I just want to tell you that you can buy me. Yay! That's the announcement. So I finally found a Cody koala that people can get. People have been asking me about this for a long time. And so now you can finally get your own Cody koala. And of course, you can get the shirt. You always have been able to, but this is a jacket that you can get as well. And you can get all of this on the swag store. Let me share my screen now. Come on, zoom. There we go. So store.epicreact.dev is where you can go and get your own swag. And we've always had the shirts and stickers and pins and stuff. My kids say that the pin that I have on my backpack looks like an ice cream cone, which I think is a feature. But yeah, so here's Cody, and then you have jackets, and these jackets are super comfortable. In fact, half of the reason that I made the jacket in the first place is because I used to have a jacket just like this that I got from React Rally a few years ago, and I crashed on my one wheel and destroyed it. And I was really sad. And so I added this to the store so I could get my jacket back. But it's awesome. It has the Epic React rocket on the side. It's also hot in here, so I'm going to take this off now. But yeah, so you can get your own little Cody the Koala with an Epic React shirt. I got one for all of my kids because, yeah, and they love them. They're great. And a really good companion for coding. Well, you just set it right on your desk by your monitor, and I can say, hey, Cody, what would you do about this problem? So better than a duck. And I actually do have a duck, but I spend my time talking to Cody. So anyway, that was the announcement that I told everybody about. If you want to stick around to do office hours and ask questions and stuff, then please do. You're more than welcome to ask questions and stuff. And actually, before we go into office hours questions, does anybody have questions about the announcement or anything like that? Okay, cool. Then let me just update this with a direct YouTube link really quick. Yeah, so here's the Discord. And good job, Marcos. Fun stuff. Okay. So actually, Marcos, it was your idea or your mention that I had another child, which I am not going to have another child, but that's what gave me the idea to have Cody say that he had a child. So thank you for that. Like I said, it's exciting, but not as exciting as what some people are saying. I have even more exciting things to announce in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned to that. So yes, let's see. Let me tell you what office hours is all about now that y'all are here. We have basically office hours is my attempt to make up for the fact that I don't give my workshops in person, or that I do, but like not everybody can take my workshops in person. And then additionally, I get a lot of questions from a lot of people, and it is disruptive to my day, but I want to answer those questions. And so I try to collect them all to office hours. And so when people ask me a question that's not during office hours, I just direct them to come bring that question to office hours. And that has the effect of me being able to answer more questions and in a setting where more people can hear the answer. So anyway, that's what office hours is all about. It's a Zoom call, so people can join and share their screen and all that stuff as needed for what questions they're asking. It also, you can queue up a bunch of questions in the KCD Office Hours channel under the meetups here. If you want to be notified of when office hours starts, then you can go to the follow me and raise your hand on here, or you can go to upcoming meetups to be notified just of office hours and not of like other meetups that I host. Yeah, so that's the intro to what office hours is all about. I always give priority to Zoom callers. So if you're in Zoom, then you get priority. You're totally fine to just lurk in Zoom as well. Or you can just watch the live stream on YouTube. Yeah, okay, that's it. What questions do you all have for me today? I'm going to wait for Zoom folks to unmute themselves and stuff. Okay, looks like nothing in Zoom, so that's fine. Let me scroll up a little bit to our last office hours. I think, yeah, that was last office hours all the way down to here. And Rupert already answered this question, but I'll just address it too. Epic React Dev testing React, is that the same as React testing? Actually, if you go to epicreact.dev/FAQ, this is such a good question that you might say it's also frequently asked. So yes, we have a testing JavaScript thing, and basically, yeah, well, you can read that, I guess. Testing JavaScript's best place to learn testing applications on the web, period. That's where you get like a deeper foundational understanding of testing. Epic React Dev gives you, I would say that it covers pretty much everything, sorry, testingjavascript.com covers pretty much everything that you learn in Epic React. But Epic React delivers it in a workshop format, which testing JavaScript doesn't right now. And so if you really like the workshop format, then Epic React would be better, except for the fact that Epic React expects that you know a fair amount about testing already, where testing JavaScript, it starts you from zero, like you've never done any testing before. So what I say to people is, if you want to learn testing, get testing JavaScript. If you want to learn React, get Epic React. If you want to learn both, then get both. So yeah, thank you for your comment on it's Sylvia. I'm gonna Sylvia. Hopefully I got that. Sylvia. Okay. Got it. Thank you, Sylvia. Okay, sweet. Yeah, why not both? That's what Lucas says. Yes. Okay, coming back here, lots of talk about what my announcement was going to be. Some people are like going way, like I was like, I've got an exciting thing, and this is exciting. Like, you know, who doesn't want a plush koala for their desk with a sweet Epic React shirt on that matches their shirt? Like, look, that's cute, right? But then people are like, oh, is it this amazing thing? Are you going to the moon? Like, it's not quite that exciting. So yeah, anyway, I was like, temper your expectations. Okay, here we go. An actual question for office hours from Yannick. Here's a question I would like to ask for office hours. I found use safe state on React Query project. My guess is this has to do with, yeah, mounting. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Alternate. Yeah. Easy to do, which we do in our workshop. Difference. Yeah. Okay. Do you know when this microtask thing is useful? I think I understand the comment from the developer, but not sure. Also, promise not awaited. Okay. So I'm not sure about the schedule microtask stuff. Okay, here we go. So it's just basically putting this callback on the next tick of the event loop. It's kind of it's sort of like a set timeout, honestly. And then to handle any or to make sure that errors are actually shown and not just swallowed. So like an unhandled promise error will be shown in the console. That's why they do this throw, but they do the set timeout so that the call stack of the error, I guess, no, I don't think the call stack would. I'm not exactly sure why they're doing it that way. Yeah, I'm not sure why they're doing it that way. But yeah, this whole thing, you don't need to do this anymore. So I literally just removed the safe state thing from my advanced workshop yesterday, just from the next branch. So if we go to next, and actually let's compare this to before, we'll go to source and utils. This is where we'll find the use async hook. So here's before. we have this use safe dispatch, kind of similar sort of thing to what they're doing. We're keeping track of the mounted state. And then only if we're mounted will we call the actual dispatch. And now we've just gotten rid of that entirely. That whole block is gone. And now we just use the regular dispatch. That's what we end up, using. So the reason that we can get rid of this, I actually documented in the changelog here. And that, oh, and by the way, this is on the next branch. This is intentional because I don't want to like change everything out from under you. And there are still things that you're learning when you create this use safe dispatch, like use ref, use layout effect, and use callback. So like it's still useful for people to build this. But that's I removed it from future deliverings of my workshop because I don't feel like it's worthwhile to record it again. So anyway, I removed safe dispatch extra credit because it's unnecessary. And I reference this PR that removes the warning for set state on unmounted components. And Dan explains why. This actually comes down to, I think Peter linked, here it is. Peter linked to his issue where a long time ago he was saying, hey, this doesn't work well. So you can read into that if you want to as well. Find the whole chain in the changelog on advanced React hooks. But yes, this is now gone. As far as like scheduling the microtask and stuff, I don't really know. I think what they're trying to do is get the callback on a different tick of the event loop so that it's not, so that this set state doesn't happen within the call stack of this use callback or of this dispatch. I'm not entirely sure why they do that. As far as whether act is going to cause a problem here or whatever, or whether this is going to require you to do act or whatever, you should be using React testing libraries utilities for waiting for changes in the DOM. And so when you do that, then everything is wrapped in act and we force everything to flush. And so you shouldn't have to worry about using act. And the fact that this is all happening under the hood shouldn't make any difference at all. Because we're not just saying, wait till the next tick of the event loop. We're just saying, wait until the DOM is changed. And so, yeah, you should be fine. I don't think you need to worry about the fact that the promise is not awaited. I think all they're doing is effectively putting this on I'm not sure why they don't just use a set timeout here. Yeah, I guess so they don't have to do a try catch around calling the callback maybe. Or I suppose the callback could be a promise, which would be really, really odd because this is supposed to simulate a set state that that would not return a promise unless you're setting the state to a promise, in which case that would make all of this very interesting. Yeah, so I'm not sure. That'd be a good one to ask the maintainers. And in fact, I think we have a maintainer in our Discord. Let me see if I can mention him. I think it's Dominic. No, that's not him. Oh, what is his name? Let me find out and I'll mention him and maybe he can come in and answer. Damien, is that? He must have changed his profile picture if that's the case. Nope, Dominic. I knew I got his name. So Dominic. We have a lot of Dominics in our Discord. TK Dodo, maybe TK Dodo. There he is. Okay. CC, do you know what the schedule or the micro task thing is all about? So we'll see. Hopefully they can help as well. Okay, Teresa, Teresa.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure. What's up, James?
I just have a single question, and this question is like something more generalized. And these days, I'm dig upon some configuration files of Create React App, and I found there is lots of stuff which exist in purpose of supporting multi-platforms like Windows and Mac, and some parts that I think it's it may be redundant for a specific user. And I want to ask whether you prefer to use create React app configuration or making on your own. I know you have your own configuration files like KCD scripts. So yeah, I just want to hear your thoughts about the configuration file, just using boilerplate or making your own configuration file.
Yeah, okay. So well, let me make sure I am clear in understanding your question. So you're hoping to, or you're wondering whether you should bother making your own configuration or toolkit like React scripts or KCD scripts. Is that what you're wondering?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think Create React App has more something like generalized code for multi-platform users. Like a software developer can be a Windows user and someone can be a Mac user. So I think Create React App is a library and they have to support all the users who are using its library. So yeah.
And so you're saying it might be better to build your own so that because you only have to care about your system.
Yeah, it's right.
I see.
And is KCD scripts purpose is to support your own specific purpose or
Yeah, I built
yeah.
it for my own use cases, but my use cases include other people using it. And so I do need it to work on Windows. Let me frame this differently. Let's say that you need to get some sort of transportation to get every day to work that's 15 miles away. And so you basically you need a car, and somebody offers you a car that can go 1,000 miles. But you say, I only need to go 15 miles, so I'm going to build my own car. That's kind of the way that I'm thinking about it this way. So just because React scripts supports more platforms than you need it to, doesn't make a difference. What you need to think about is what is going to be a worthwhile thing for the what you're going to spend your time doing. And if there's something that already exists that solves a problem that you have, and it doesn't create a bunch of other problems in the process, then I would just use that and move on with my life. Now, like, keep in mind, if it does create a bunch of other problems, then yeah, you may need to build your own thing. But just because it does more than what you need it to, I don't think is a reason to not use it. Does that answer your question, or am I missing something?
So can I ask why what makes you make your own configuration like KCD scripts instead of
Yeah,
using Create React App?
yeah, great question. Create React App doesn't do enough for me. So Create React App is for building apps. KCD scripts is for building libraries. And so that's the difference. I don't use KCD scripts for building apps. And in fact, my Remix app doesn't use KCD scripts at all, because it didn't really, I would need to make too many changes to it. And I don't have the time to do those. So I copied over my prettier config and my linting stuff, and luckily my linting stuff is my ESLint config is a separate thing, so I can just reuse that separate thing. And prettier is like pretty simple to configure. And like I didn't want to use lint stage, which is included by default in KCD scripts. So yeah, anyway, that's why I created KCD scripts, is because Create React App or React scripts doesn't support a script for running prettier or running linting outside of the Webpack running process. And I also don't want to use Webpack for my libraries. I use Rollup for my libraries, or Babel if it's just something for Node. And so yeah, that's basically it comes down to, does this tool do what you need it to? If it does, use it. If it doesn't, then you need to build your own. And so I built my own.
Okay, so KCD script is for a library, and when it comes to you to make a new application, you're making your own new configuration, right?
Actually, I don't use Create React App for building applications because I don't want to build client-only applications. I like server rendering, and so I'm using Remix for everything new that I do. And in fact, the workshop apps are eventually going to move from Create React App to Remix in the future. So yeah, so I pretty much am leaving Create React App. Most of what Create React App does for you is the bundler. That's the primary benefit to using Create React App. It does a little bit for Jest, and it has like some configuration there, but a Jest config is not nearly as complicated as a Webpack config. And so I don't mind configuring that myself. And then it also does linting like within Webpack with a loader, which I actually hate. So I'm not sad to leave that. So yeah, I use Remix and they take care of the bundling and everything for me.
Well, I heard Remix my first time, so I have to maybe I can try. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. And I forgot after I finished the last question to double check whether anybody in here has questions. I see Teresa is here, so I'll go ahead and answer hers next. But yeah, feel free to interrupt me if I'm going through Discord and you're actually in Zoom and you have a question. So Teresa, following your use React context effectively article, do you have any best practices for testing components that make use of that pattern? Best way to provide necessary context data that your components render properly in a Jest RTL environment. Okay. Yes. So I've got this on testing JavaScript and Epic React, where I show you how to do this effectively. And I can show you the docs, testinglibrary.com. Let's get rid of a bunch of these tabs we had earlier. Okay, so it's a custom render. Yeah, that's React Native testing library. Let's see if custom render right here. So this is what you want. You want to use a custom render, and that custom render allows you to provide all of the providers that your components use, and you pass those that component as a wrapper, and then you use your custom render. You override so basically you re-export everything from testing library React, but you override the render export with your own custom render. And then instead of importing everything from testing library React, you import everything from test utils. And now the render is going to be have all of these providers provided. And so, yeah, that's what I recommend people do. And I've got an example of that in the Bookshelf app as well. So if we go to our, come on, test, see, utils, here we go. Our app test utils, we do that exact same thing right here. And in fact, in addition to simply rendering, we also take care of whether the user is defined. So if you don't specify a user, then we'll log in as a user first. And then we'll navigate to the route that you provide us. We default to the /list route because that's like the home route, but you can provide us your own route. And then we do our render with React Testing Library with the UI and our providers. And then we return all of the utilities that React Testing Library returns, as well as the user. And then we also wait for the loading state to finish before returning. And so this allows, actually, let me link to this really quick.
So one thing I found is I was actually using that custom render method, but the components were not receiving the actual current state of context.
Okay, so that sounds like, So were you providing a value in context when you rendered it?
Yeah, I found it didn't actually find its way all the way through.
That's highly unusual. There's clearly something is wrong. If you can make a reproduction of that problem, then I can dig into that with you. And if you can do that before office hours is over, we might have time to do that today. Otherwise, we can do that next week. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, I probably won't be able to get that because everything's done on a closed network, but I can see about recreating something that.
Yeah, if you
sort of
could
goes to
recreate
that.
something that has the same problem, then
Okay.
I or somebody else in the community as well. So don't wait to post it till next week. But we could probably figure out what's going on if you can make a minimal reproduction there.
Okay. So, I mean, one way that I did manage to get around it is by passing in the context as a property.
Mhm.
And then I could get it instead of trying to put the data on the provider itself. So by
Oh, so
moving
like
it instead
accept
of,
it as a prop and then pass it as a prop.
yep. So instead
see.
of calling the hook itself inside the component to pass it in as a property, then I could pass the data in, but without using that method, then the data never actually showed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And that's no fun, right? Like the whole reason you're using context is so you don't have to pass a prop. So yeah, if you can figure out a way to reproduce that, then we can figure out what's going on.
Okay.
So yeah, good luck. Hopefully you figure something out soon. Okay, cool. So let's go with, is it again zealous? Again zealous? You're not. Oh yeah,
just Lucas is fine.
Just Lucas. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at a sandbox. It's for React query related issue. Things are re-rendering, but use effect is not firing. 99% convinced this is a bug in React, but I'd love to get your opinion. Okay, interesting. So when my computer can finally, can you all see this, this text that I'm dragging around, the closed captions?
Nope.
You can't. Okay, good. I'm going to move this away then because it's distracting me. I don't want it to be like helpful for somebody and then me move it away. But it was distracting me. I'm fine being distracted if it's helping somebody else. But if it's not helping anybody, then I'm getting rid of it. Okay. So, oh, good. It's 38 lines of code. Sometimes people will make reproductions and it's like an entire project of like hundreds of lines of code. I'm like, I mean, I do have a consulting fee. This is not a consulting hour. Okay, so here we go. We've got our example and yeah, our index simply renders that example. We are in strict mode, so that will have an impact with renders. Sometimes people will put a console log in the body of their function and say, see, it's rendering twice. And you're like, well, you're in strict mode. It's calling the render function twice. But if you put that console log in a use effect, it's going to happen once. Strict mode just changes things in interesting ways. But anyway, your thing is within a use effect. So I don't think that's going to be any sort of problem. But there's always something to check. If things aren't behaving the way you think it is, try to disable strict mode and see if that happens the same way, or just do it in production. Like build a production version of your app and run it there and see if it happens the same. And it's possible that strict mode is making it behave differently, which could potentially be a bug also. But I think we're probably fine there. Then we have our query client provider. We pass our client, very basic setup here. So we've got our dummy here. This is, I'm guessing, to trigger a re-render. Now, okay, so maybe you can correct me, but my guess is you're trying to say set dummy is going to trigger a re-render. That is not going to happen because you're setting it to the same value as it was before. And if you set it to the same value, it won't trigger a re-render.
No, set dummy is actually what causes the bug. So, so without set dummy, the bug doesn't happen.
Okay,
that's the bug.
I see. That is, yeah, that's unusual. So what is, okay, this in fact never runs when value is true. Okay. I see. So you're basically using query client here to set a value inside of use query, and that's the value that we've got. So we should get that value there. We initialize it to a false value, And then when we say re-render, we're going to say set that value to the opposite of what it is, or what it was when we created the re-render function. And then that should trigger a re-render. And that re-render will not be synchronous because this is happening in a button handler. So internally, query client eventually is going to do some sort of set state to trigger a re-render. But that will not happen by the time we get to set dummy. So we're just saying, hey, this value is going to change. And then also set dummy is going to be set to 0 again. So that React should early exit out of that. It should say, oh, you want to set this? Oh, it's already that value. So forget about it. I'm not going to do anything with that. That's what should happen. And then eventually, our function is finished. React finishes all of its event handling stuff. And then it says, okay, let's see what things changed. I'm not sure whether query client immediately, like synchronously sets its own use state stuff or use reducer or whatever. As soon as you call set query data, I'm guessing they schedule that for later. And so in any case, eventually that state update does happen. And so we trigger a re-render of this example component, and value should now be true. Yeah, data should be true. So value should be true, which should trigger this use effect to get run again. And you're saying that when I comment this out, then we do call it. But if I leave it as it is, then we don't.
Exactly.
Okay.
The re-render happens, but the effect doesn't run. So you can open the console there and you will see it yourself.
Okay.
It's crazy.
So when we're starting, we're rendering with the value, and the value at the start is undefined because this is a promise. So our current state is a loading state. And then the effect is triggered for the first time. So effects are always triggered on our mount. And then we render with the value of false. So this promise resolved. React query updated the state that triggered a re-render of example. And now the value is false. And so this value, which was undefined before, is now false. And so therefore this use effect will run. And so that's what the cleanup is all about. And then it caused our effect to trigger again. And now if I click on re-render, then it should change value to true. It will also call set dummy, which should say, nope, never mind, don't re-render. But this will eventually trigger a re-render. And let's see what happened. Oh, now that's interesting. I clicked somewhere else. I didn't click on the button. Hold on a second. Wow, that's.
Huh. No, yeah, I'm sorry. Don't really pay attention to that. That's a React query thing where when the window gains focus again, it refreshes everything. But just click on the render button.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, cool. So. Yeah, that's a funny thing. Okay, anyway, ignoring that. So if we click on re-render, then we're getting rendering with value of true, but this use effect is not happening. What if we do this? I doubt this is going to work, but if I put if I stringify that, yeah, doesn't change. I didn't think it would. Yeah, that's very unusual. So the next step is how do we get React query out of this? Because that's a giant blob of complexity. And I'm guessing you've already tried this and you're not able to reproduce it without React query. Is that right?
Exactly. And I try to dig in React query to be able to extract the logic from the set query data, but it's too, it was bigger than me.
Yeah. It's really
I could not handle it. Yep.
And
also, please try with commenting the set dummy, because that's crazy. That without the set dummy, it works as it should. So the set dummy is actually skipping the effect.
Yeah. Okay. So, what if we get rid of the React query side of this? Then of course it shouldn't change the value, so it won't re-render anyway. But we are getting the expected behavior of set dummy not triggering a re-render. So that at least is good. But yeah, this is, so my guess is this is a bug in, it seems like a bug in React, but the fact that you can't reproduce it without React query means that there's a bug in the integration between React and React query. So one of them is doing something wrong. My feeling is that it's really unlikely that it's a React bug. That seems super unlikely. But it's very possible there are React bugs.
That was my feeling as well. But if it didn't re-render at all, I would say, okay, let's blame React query. But it does re-render, but the effect doesn't run. So it seems to be on the React side of things.
Yeah. Let me try this. If we actually make set dummy trigger a re-render, does that? Oh shoot, I just saved it. Now I have to fork it and wait forever. And I tried to never save it because it takes forever. Okay, here we go. Let's try this again. So if we do trigger an update, then it will work properly. So it's only when React goes into the code that says, should I re-render? No, then I won't. For one element of state. So, I mean, this is a great reproduction, really small. I would probably post it in both places, actually. I'd make an issue and just say, I'm not sure where the problem is. It seems like this is a React issue because the value is changing and the effect isn't running. But it also could be a React query issue. And I'm not sure. That's what I would do. Yeah, boy, that one's tricky. But very good reproduction. That's super helpful. Pretty minimal. So yeah, good on you. Okay, yeah, cool. Anybody else in Zoom have a question before I move on to the Discord questions?
Sorry to interrupt you again. I have one more question. Yeah. Yeah, I've searched about Remix after your suggestion, and I read your blog about Remix and found that Remix is a paid software. And actually, I have no experience using paid software before, and so I'm wondering if there are any disadvantages compared to the open source project, since open source are watched by many people all over the world. So pull requests, like maintaining works, are happening more actively. But since Remix is a paid software and number of users are small, and yeah.
This question comes up a lot.
Yeah.
So it the way that I see it is when we just naturally can compare it to Next because that's what everybody does naturally, and they solve many of the same problems, and so it makes sense. So lots of people say, well, Remix is just a paid version of Next. Why would I ever use Remix? First of all, I'll say it's very different from that. Remix has a lot of benefits over Next, and so it's not just a paid version of Next. So then the question is, well, should paid software even be a thing? And when you use Next, or let me say that differently. Vercel is sponsoring the development of Next. And when you sponsor the development of something, that thing is a cost center for you. So it's not making you money. It's indirectly helping you to make money. So the way that they make money is by hosting your Next projects. And so they make Next really easy to host on Vercel. And that's their primary mission. How can we make it easier to host this on Vercel so that more people will use this on Vercel? And that has the indirect impact of making it very difficult to use Next with anything else. That has not been my personal experience, but I've had many people tell me this, and I imagine there are some people who are watching nodding their heads. It is not, I wouldn't say very difficult, but it is non-trivial to host Next anywhere else. I don't think they do that on purpose, but it's just a natural extension of the fact that, hey, we don't make money working on Next directly. We make money when people host their Next projects on Vercel. And so there's that, like, it's just the like the mental impact of the fact that this is a cost center for us. Whereas with paid software, whether it's Remix or WebStorm or anything else, when the thing that you're working on is the way that you make money, things change a lot. And for me as a user, the more users who are using open source software, the bigger the burden on the maintainers. But when it's paid software, the more users who are using the paid software, that actually is not a bigger burden. It's actually like making them money so they can continue to develop the software. So the question of, is paid software a good thing? I would say emphatically, yes, paid software is a great thing. And you should really value your time to a great degree. And so if software can save you a great amount of time, but it's paid, just say, is my time worth this amount of money? And if it would take you more than just an hour or two to build, or maybe a day to build something like Remix, then the answer of like, is this worth my effort or worth my time should be obvious. Like, yes, it would take me way more time to build something like Remix than the cost of it. So that's why I have no problem with paying for software. And I will end this little rant about it by saying that Remix is going to change their license in the future, or like the structure there. And so if you're like, I'm kind of interested, but not enough to pay a bunch of money to try it out, then I would say wait for a month or two. Yeah, I'll also say that Remix is the next big thing. It is so great. Yeah, it is an amazing piece of software to build on, and I've been working with it for the last like 9 months, basically ready to give birth to my Remix baby. And you'll see when I release it and release my new website in a couple weeks. It's pretty cool. The things that I can do on my new website that I never would have even considered on my existing Gatsby website. It's night and day. There are so many cool things that I can do that are just like, oh, that's an interesting idea. And I can just do it easily with Remix that I never could have done it with Gatsby. And Next doesn't make it easy to do some of the things that I'm doing with Remix as well. So anyway, that's that.
Oh, thanks for your comments. So you're saying that paid software can have more higher quality, even if they have much less pull requests than open sources, because they are paid and they are developing more passionately.
Yeah, and there are places where, or projects that are getting sponsored full time with like, where the sponsor has no say in the product direction or the project direction or anything like that. So people are sponsored to just work on it full time. But that's like your chances of nailing that sort of a gig are less than getting into the MBA. There are so few people who are making it full time on open source, and even those people, they're not necessarily benefited by more users. The more users that an open source project gets, the harder it is for that open source project to stay afloat. And so, yeah, I think that a paid model, even though it means you have fewer users, that doesn't necessarily mean that the software is any less amazing. Yeah, more users does not necessarily mean better software. That, yeah, I can stand by that truth.
Yeah, thanks for your thought. Maybe I should try it.
Yeah, I will also say that more users is correlated to better software because you have more innovation, more ideas, and all that. But I'm not concerned at all about Remix and the innovation around there. Like we're talking about the people who who built React Router that's used by 99% of React projects. And then, taught, I don't know, probably not, maybe about as many people as I've taught React, which is not a small number. So like I go to them when I have questions about React. We'll put it that way. So yeah, anyway, hopefully that puts to rest some of your concerns. And I can say, as a user for the last long time, almost a year, actually, October is when they released it, the initial developer preview, and I've been using it since then. And it is like, I don't want to build websites without with anything else, or web apps, or whatever you want to call it. Remix is phenomenally good.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah. Okay, sweet. So Vittorio is asking, how can style and autocomplete multiple to make the select value not expand the width of the result? It's really hard to answer this one. I'm going to give you a bot reaction to talk about creating a reproduction. I can't ever remember. I think it's this one. Yes, that is the one. So yeah, if you can make a reproduction, then that goes, it's just really basically impossible for me to answer this question without a reproduction of some kind. Because there are lots of solutions to this problem, and it just depends on where you are in this problem. And then I guess one other thing that I would say with that is maybe don't build your own. There are existing solutions. And the one that I would look at first is the Reach Tech, not Dialog. What is it called? I can't remember. The Combo Box, that's right. So I would look at this one first and see about just using something that's already built, so you don't have to build your own. Because it is very difficult to do this as like something that's accessible. It just takes a lot of work. There's also downshift, which won't help you much with the styling of stuff. But yeah, anyway. Oh yeah, and another tool, people keep telling me if you want something like Create React App that's really fast and configurable, then Vite, which is the wrong way to say this word, but that's what I'm told how you're supposed to pronounce it, is Vite. This is Vite, V-I-T-E, that's Vite. Sorry, maybe in another language that would be Vite, and maybe that's what it is. So maybe not everything has to be in English.
It's actually French.
Is it French? Is that why
it's French?
Vite? Yeah. Oh, all right. I'm happy with that. That's fine. I can say déjà vu. Yeah. Okay. Vite. I'm okay with that now. Is Dino? Is that French?
No, I think it's just Dino or
that's
Deno. That's just potato. I mean,
nope. That's Deno. But they told me, they said it was
Dino.
It
however I want to say it. Like,
you know what? Actually, I think that I heard a talk where Ryan Dahl pronounced it Deno, and then later he was like on a panel, and somebody asked, "How do you pronounce it?" And it wasn't him. It was one of the other team said Dino, and I guess it's because it's supposed to be after the dinosaur in Flintstones.
Yeah.
And so it's Dino, but
I think the answer is both.
It's both, yeah. Okay, but I'm happy with Vite. It's French. I can go with that. Okay, Kyle is asking, using local storage and Next, using a hook we studied in React Hooks course. Yeah, Next, local storage. You're going to have a question about server-side rendering, aren't you? Okay, setting up get initial props, server-side props. Yeah, can't use it in those places because they run on the server. Also want my page and what I get from those functions to be synced. Yep, very common. Also want to be able to use local storage state. Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's super obvious, Kyle. Yeah, I actually removed the use local storage hook from the revamp of my workshop in the next branch today. I can't remember what I replaced it with, but I removed it for this reason, that when you go with server rendering, you can't use this hook, at least not in a component that's rendered on hydration. because yeah, local storage, it's actually kind of a cheat code using local storage inside of a use state, because technically that's a side effect to read from local storage. And so yeah, not a great thing to do. So a solution could be you use the use async hook, yeah, and then in a use effect you say run, and then you grab the local storage value. The problem with this, of course, is that it won't actually run on the server, and so you'll hydrate, and then that will run, and then it'll change, and we don't like that. That's not great for users. And so I ran into this problem when working on, am I running my server for my site? Yeah. So I ran into this problem when working on the theme for this, because normally what people will do is they put the theme in local storage, and that ends up working well if you can make that work, if you're like a client-side application. But one thing I really wanted to avoid was a flash of the wrong theme. And so when you haven't signed in and you're not you haven't selected anything, then we just go based on your what is it, preference. That's the word I was looking for. We go on your system preference, and so I have dark mode selected, but if I go to light mode, then this changes. And so I can't know what the user's preference is until we run on the client. So it's very much the same sort of thing. You have code that needs to run on the client, or that can only run on the client, but you need to know what that value is on the server. And it can be very difficult. So I have two solutions to this. One, when you select a theme, then I actually save that in your session in like a cookie, and then I read that from the cookie to know how to render. And then the solution for when you haven't actually chosen one of these, and I think I just chose it, so let's refresh my session there. So if you haven't chosen one, then it's actually kind of complicated, and I'm going to write a blog post about this. But there's actually an easy solution to this if you're not using Remix. And it kind of comes out of the fact that Next doesn't have you rehydrate the whole document, whereas Remix gives you everything. I have state that controls the class name on the HTML element. Have fun doing that with anything but Remix. There's a lot of great benefits, but because yeah, there are some drawbacks, and it is a little bit more complicated, but I could probably make a library out of this. And so then because Remix composes things really nicely, it's great. But yeah, if you're not using Remix, and it sounds like you're using Next, then you can take a look at dark mode, Josh Como. I don't know how to spell his name, something like that. Come on, DuckDuckGo, you can figure it out. Okay, so Josh actually uses Gatsby, but you can do the same sort of thing with Next. And so I would reference you to this blog post. I'm going to write my own blog post that shows how to do this with Remix. And yeah, it's kind of cool the way I do this with Remix. So anyway, you weren't asking about dark mode, but this might help give you like the right frame of mind of what to do about this sort of situation. It basically involves, here, actually, you know what? I can show you what it involves. If my computer weren't so slow when I'm doing this. Write script. Is it not in here? Hold on a second. I think I might accidentally have, because I actually don't include this script when you've been here before. So let's just clear out all application storage stuff, clear site data. There we go. We'll hard refresh. And then we should have, oh, actually, you know what? No, this is right. And in here, we should have a script. Huh. Yeah, that is not the script. That is so weird. I mean, it's working, so I don't know. I don't know why it doesn't have my script tag in there. I'll have to look into that. Anyway, what these solutions involve is basically a script that runs outside of your app that grabs the local storage value and sets something, some other value that you can reference and stuff. Whereas, yeah, there, script. Yeah, right there. So yeah, you just check local storage, and then he's updating CSS variables for you. Yeah, I'm not sure what you would do. Well, one thing that I do is I actually, I should write a blog post about this to describe it, but basically I will render, kind of render both things on the server. And then I will, in a little script tag, I will look at the DOM before hydration, and I will change it to what the client is going to hydrate it to be. So think about that for a second. Okay, and I will write a blog post about this eventually when I finally launch this and can start writing blog posts again. Okay, so you've got a theme. It's organized like this. Styled components, and styled components, you do this. Yep, okay. This approach works in most components. However, some components, the background color is red for brand 1, and for brand 2, the background is green. But brand 2, the specific component, the background color needs to be yellow. My goodness, it sounds complicated. Okay, so we're just asking about which option is better. So I look at something like this and I think that is not co-located at all. So what I would recommend is have a mechanism for overriding the theme in one part of the tree. And I'm not sure how possible that is. I haven't used styled components in a long, or like ever actually. I've never actually used styled components in anything real because I use Glamorous. I created and used Glamorous first, and instead of using styled components, and then that was deprecated in favor of Emotion, which I used for a long time, and it's still great. But I don't use that anymore. Now I'm using Tailwind. One thing that I do is actually, and you might get a lot of mileage out of this, don't use JavaScript for your theme. Use CSS variables instead. And one interesting thing about my site is that you can choose a team to be on, red, yellow, or blue, and the entire UI changes based on which team you're on. But also, if we go to a blog post that is owned by the yellow team, which you'll understand all this when I launch this, but you'll notice that that one, it is all yellow instead of blue. And I'm using a special class name that I assign based on who is the owner of this post, or the leader, which team is the leader. And I just have this class name that says set color to yellow. And then all that does is set the CSS variable. And so now everything under here sets the CSS variable for the current team to be the yellow team, so that those highlights are correct. And so you'd probably get a lot more power and flexibility out of using CSS variables instead of themes. And then like the way that, and in fact, I wrote about this in articles, and it was this one, use CSS variables instead of context, which is what the theme is. So that's the approach I would take. It's hard for me to really recommend anything else. Basically, I would suggest trying to make it so that you still have some co-location, because putting everything right here does not seem like a great idea. Putting things here doesn't make it all that much better, just by putting it in a separate file. If it was just a choice between these two, I'd probably go with this one. Oh, maybe, I don't know. It's probably fine, but I think you'd just be way better off with CSS variables, which I realize that might be a big change for you, but probably not. I think you probably, unless these CSS or unless these values are defined like persisted in the database, different for everybody, and you load it up in JavaScript. But even then, you can set CSS variable values in using JavaScript, and so you could still work with it that way. So I don't think it would be a huge amount of effort to switch from CSS and JS theming solution to CSS variable one. And I describe kind of how to do that in here, so you can give that a look. Okay. Okay, and I have to continue, so I'm not going to dive too deep into Dominic's response here, but yeah, looks like he's not sure either. That's okay. What do you think of including a code coverage on CI pipeline? We have it, my work, it's not good since it makes you focus on passing the enforced percentage. I think it is good to have code coverage on CI, and I think there should be a threshold. I don't think that it should be 100%, but it should be at a reasonable threshold. And also, what's more important to me is that coverage doesn't go down. I can't tell you a specific threshold to put everything at, but making sure coverage doesn't go down, I think, is a good thing, because it ensures that any code you add is tested to an appropriate degree. So I always set the threshold a little bit lower than where it is currently to give a little bit of work wiggle room, because not everything needs to be tested. But yeah, I do think that having a threshold is a good thing. Yes, this is definitely a space to talk about any topic of any kind, and I will just not answer if I don't want to, which I've never done actually. But yeah, you can feel free to ask anything, so long as in the asking you don't break the code of conduct. Okay, micro front ends. Yeah, so I don't really have a lot of experience with micro front ends. I've never used Webpack federated modules or single SPA or anything like that. It seems like a really complicated solution for what is a minimally sized problem. That's the way that I see it. So the big problem that it solves is when you go from one app within your company to another. So at PayPal, an example of this was my team was responsible for cross-border transactions, or just like peer-to-peer transactions in general. But we had multiple apps within that umbrella. And when users went from a domestic transfer to an international transfer, they would have to go from one app to the other. And that process triggered a full page reload. And that is the problem that tools like single SPA or micro front end solve, is making it so you don't have to do a full page refresh to go from one to the other. Also that they don't have to, or that you have shared libraries that you're using, so those will be bundled appropriately and cached and all of that stuff. However, most people don't seem to care about the cache very much, because they always set their cache headers to most people have like a hash in there in their bundle, and so then they set the cache header to infinity. But then you make even a single change to anything in that bundle, and that hash changes, and now you've busted the cache. So those caches don't actually live for very long, and so yeah, like a lot of effort is put into making it so that we can cache those assets, but not enough effort is put into making sure that those assets stay at that URL for very long. And so you don't get a lot of benefit from that cache. A little bit, but not a lot. So anyway, the primary benefit is not having to do a full page refresh when you're going from one app to another. And the micro front end the requirements of making a micro front end are really big. It is a non-trivial thing. You have to make it a lot of trade-offs. Like now we don't want to have two versions of React, right? So we got to stay, everybody's on the same version of React. Okay, so now I can't upgrade because that team's not getting their stuff together so that we can upgrade. That's not great. And that's not imposed by the framework. You could just have two versions of React, but like most people don't want to do that when they're in a micro front end, because that's one of the benefits, being able to share dependencies. And so it just naturally leads to, well, we can't upgrade because they're not going to get their stuff together. And so that's a big pain. And then just the amount of complexities around just using the micro front end technologies. I mean, Yago, I don't know if Yago is here, but he's been working on federated modules for a while. And it's like, I'm not saying the use case doesn't exist. I'm just saying it is a huge amount of complexity. And I would not use it if you were just passively interested. That's all. As far as like where to start, I don't have any good suggestions because I've never done it. Single SPA is one thing. On a Chats with Kent episode, I think in season 2, I talked with Justin McMurdy, who is one of the maintainers of Single SPA. I talked about micro front ends, and he's a good friend of mine. And so you could maybe go and listen to that. Yeah, sorry, I don't have much more to say about that. Mateo has a question. How do you handle big forms with lots of inputs? I use React Native, and big forms tend to grow slow. And yeah, okay. So, yeah, big forms. I actually have a blog post about this. It is improved performance of your React forms. So follow some of this advice. The TLDR is basically, don't make all of the forms care about each other, or all the form fields. Try to separate those form fields out a little bit. Does the address need to know when the name changes? It doesn't? Then why is the address re-rendering when that name changes? Why are they connected from a state standpoint? So you can structure things differently, as I described in this blog post, so that you don't have things connected in any way, which triggers the re-renders. That is what makes the forms slower. I know some people would just say use Svelte, and then you don't have these problems, which maybe, I don't know, but good luck using Svelte in a native environment. I don't know if they've got a solution for that. Yeah, I'm not going to use Svelte. And Svelte is great. It's, you know, people seem to love it. I don't expect to ever use Svelte. And also, I don't think that anything will ever topple React, except for computers. We will be typing. The last thing that I type, it will be a React thing. And then the computers will take over and I'll never type anything again. That's the way that I feel about it. And I feel like that's happening in the next decade, before 2030. We'll see. Just hoping that I can make enough good happen before our robot overlords take over. Anyway, yeah, hopefully that blog post helps you, Mateo. Yeah, good luck. And yeah, Formic, I've never used Formic myself, but yeah, that would be one to look into, I suppose. A lot of people seem to love Formic. And there's also a use React form or something, like some hook for React forms that got a lot of popularity. I never really used that either. I've never built really big forms with React. I did a lot with Angular, but yeah, I've never built forms that were more than just a handful of fields large. So I don't know or have personal experience with libraries, because I never really saw a reason to use libraries. Remix actually makes forms even easier. There's even less that you have to worry about. Yeah, it really does. Like, in fact, Remix doesn't really have state management problems. You don't think about using state management libraries with Remix. And so therefore you don't have re-renders. It's not a problem. It's amazing. Now, of course, like you want to do real-time validation as the user's typing and stuff, then in that case, you you take this thing, you put it into its own little component and have its own state running in there. The rest of the form doesn't care. And that's the big solution. Now, if they do depend on each other, then you have a context provider to put that state in there, and then only the things that consume it. That's basically what this blog post is about. But like most of the time, you can get a long way just using Remix and forms. Unfortunately, again, I'm reminded that yes, you're talking about React Native. You cannot use Remix with React Native unless you want to do like a web view or something, which some people do. So anyway, sorry, I'm not. That's the other problem is I've never done anything with React Native either. So I did Hello World once, and it was really cool. I used Expo, and I think it was called Snack.io or something like that. But like, I typed it up in the in-browser editor on my computer. I scanned this thing with my phone, and all of a sudden, the app I was working on my computer is now on my phone, and it said, "Hello, Kent." I was like, wow, that's cool. And I showed it to the person next to me on the airplane, and they're like, neat. We just landed. Yeah, it was, anyway, moving on. I got your points about Remix. However, would you consider keeping a legacy version of Epic React using standard React? Okay, so that's a great question. Epic React is yours forever, period. You will always have access to the videos you have access to today. Always, always. So if you're worried about like, oh no, like Remix and I don't like it or whatever, then yeah, don't worry about it. You will always have access to the wonderfully helpful videos that you have today. Yeah, switching to Remix would be too hard. Don't worry. So like the idea behind switching to Remix is like, I don't teach you how to use Create React App in Epic React. That's just like an implementation detail of the project. With the exception of the build, let's build an Epic React app with the bookshelf thing. So yeah, with all of the let's learn React together, that's all like the fact that we're using Create React App shouldn't make any difference to you. And me moving all the workshops to Remix, it will be the same thing. It'll be like the same experience. You'll just run a script. You don't know what's going on in the background, except it happens to run way faster. And then you just have the files that you're working in. So it should all be exactly the same. That's the objective. Then when we get to building an actual app, I'm going to teach you Remix because I can't in good faith teach you Create React App because most apps shouldn't use Create React App. And so I need to teach you the best way to build a React app, and that's Remix. So yeah, if you're not worried about, you're mentoring 2 junior devs, that Epic React would be helpful, but not with Remix. I disagree. I think that junior devs could and should and will use Remix, and they'll love it. And it will not be too much. I don't know if you are using Remix right now, but you seem to have this impression that Remix is really complicated. It's super not. And it actually is. I think your juniors would love it because like you rarely need to worry about use effects or even use state. Let's see. I'm just for the fun of it. Where's my, I'm going to pull up Remix really quick, my Remix project. And I'm just going to do a project-wide search for use effect and let's bring it over. Come on, move over. There we go. And use state. Man, my computer does not like it when I'm sharing my screen. Okay, so we've got a couple use effects in here, a couple components that are using use effects. Yep. Wow, actually a lot more results than I expected. Now, of course, lots of these are in my blog posts. So yeah, the majority of those are blog posts. But I don't know, is that like 30 use effects? And then this is, let me make sure that everybody understands the scope of this project. This is 25,000 lines of code that I have written with the assistance of Stefan, who you've seen in the Discord. Like it's a non-trivial project. I would be interested to see how many use effects you all have in your projects, because it will be more than this, I promise you. So yeah, like most of this is in my content. So we're probably looking at maybe 40 use effects, and use state. We've got Yeah, just about maybe a little less. Use reducer. I don't think I've even got one actually. Yeah, I don't even have a single use reducer in the whole project. And it's like a real thing. Use callback. Let's look at that callback. I might have a couple. Yeah, just a handful of those. Use memo. I don't think I have one. Oh yeah, we do have a couple. I have a interesting audio recorder component. So you still have like those things that are really super interactive in the browser. You're going to be still needing some of the React stuff. Let's see, I've got a handful of refs as well. Again, like lots of stuff still in the content. But anyway, I think that you end up needing to think about less and do less when you're using Remix. Do less of the React-y things. And so juniors will love Remix because it's easier than just a create React app thing. So yeah, don't worry. You will always have Epic React as it is today. You'll always have it. When the Remix stuff comes out, all of the workshops will be just about React, nothing about Remix. The fact that it's using Remix under the hood is an implementation detail that you don't need to worry about. And then when we're building a Remix app, I'll hold your hand just like I do with everything else to help you ramp up to the Remix aspects. So I'm glad that you asked the question, but you don't need to worry about anything. Remix actually makes React a lot simpler. Okay, React testing library question. We've got this disable hover styles. Yeah, so yeah, how do you cover this? Okay. Yeah, so it removes any hover effects from my button. My question is, how does it do that? Because you won't be able to test the actual effect for the user unless you're doing a visual regression test, which is probably what you should do if this is really important. You could use Storybook and Chromatic. You could use Amplitools for your whole app. There's also Percy. So there are options for visual regression tests. Frankly, if I were building working on a button, you're probably working on a component library. And I would use Storybook and Chromatic probably. Yeah, because that's like, that fits in perfectly. Like, I'm building a component library. Well, then obviously I want to do this. But if it's just like, I just want to make sure that this has the effect, and I'll just trust that everything else is wired together and that it works. So my guess is this is going to add or remove class names or something. So you can just assert that those class names exist. Sorry, my son is here. Hold on one second. Hey, bud. Hi. I'm recording something. You want to play soccer? Yeah. Yeah, I'll be out in a little bit. No, I'll go get the ball. You get your shoes back on and go outside. Sorry, I gotta go here in just a sec. When my son comes home from kindergarten, we play soccer for a couple minutes. That is a new thing we're starting today, and I'm looking forward to it. And he just got home, so I'm gonna wrap this up really quick. So anyway, hopefully that helps you. So just assert on the things that happen, and then hope that everything else is wired up properly. But the correct way to do this would be a visual regression test, where you're actually like taking pictures and stuff. Working on a few personal projects. When working on them, always struggle to style the UI. Welcome to my life, my friend. Yeah, never satisfied. Yep. Where is the go-to place for UI stuff? So I hire a designer. That's like everything that I have done that looks good is designed by somebody else. No joke, including my existing website, kentcdodds.com. This was all done by a designer. This was done by a designer. This is all done by a designer. This is not mine, but Josh is amazing. So I'm sorry, that doesn't really help. I am not a designer. I can't make things look good. I can recreate a design. That is something I can do. But yeah, making things look nice and cohesive and stuff, that's tough. I'm sorry, I cannot help you. Maybe somebody else can though. Go ahead and ask that same question in front end, and maybe you can get some ideas. I know like people might say dribble and stuff. So yeah. Yeah, good luck, Mateo, on that. Okay, yeah, I think we're all finished with this. I'm gonna go play soccer with my son. So thanks for hanging out. Again, the big announcement was we now have a sweet jacket. If it weren't so hot, I'd be wearing this because it's super comfortable. And I literally only added this to the store because I used to have this exact same type of jacket. And look, it has the React, the Epic React thing on it on the shoulder. It's really awesome. Had the exact same thing with a really cool React logo, as a purple React logo on the shoulder from speaking at React Rally. And I destroyed it when I crashed on my one wheel. And I was so sad. That was like the worst part. I have scars on myself and I'm still more sad about losing the jacket. So I got it. I got this added to the store so I could get the jacket. And then Cody the koala in miniature form with a awesome Epic React shirt. So yeah, pick those up. And the socks, I wear the socks sometimes as well, and the mask and the pin. And I'm wearing the shirt right now and it's awesome. It's really nice and comfortable too. So yeah, that's it. Thanks everybody for hanging out. This is fun. And I will see you all next time, which is next week. And I'm pretty sure I should be here. I guess I could double check. Let's see. Next week. Hey, see you, Joshua. Yeah, next week I will be here.